The story begins with a funeral. Soldiers are standing in rows holding their guns, then they raise them and shoot into the sky as a final goodbye to the fallen. 2 weeks before this moment, a secret military operation is planned near the coast of Syria. It is just 5 kilometers from the shore. Lieutenant Commander James Reese is in charge of the mission. He leads a team of trained soldiers, all preparing to move in quietly and stop a dangerous arms dealer. The only way in is through an old sewer. It is dark, wet, and full of danger. The floor is covered in dirty water, and hidden traps are everywhere. Thin wires and explosives are set up to kill anyone who gets too close. The team moves carefully, step by step, but something goes wrong. Just as they move forward, enemy fighters suddenly appear and start shooting. In the middle of the fight, one of the soldiers steps too fast and triggers a wire. An explosion goes off. The team is caught off guard. 12 Navy SEALs are killed. James and a few others survive, but the mission is ruined. Everything falls apart. James is forced to stop the mission and lead whoever is left to safety. They escape, but the damage is done. Back at the base, James is asked to explain what happened. But when they play the recording from the mission, it doesn't match his memory. Something feels wrong. He is also sent to a doctor. The doctor asks if he is forgetting things and tells him to stop drinking alcohol. But instead of resting, James goes straight to a bar and drinks alone. Something heavy is building inside him, and he doesn't know who to trust. Soon, he heads home. His friend Ben Edwards picks him up. James tells Ben he believes the mission was a trap. He also thinks the audio files used by his superiors, supposedly recorded during the mission, might be fake. Ben agrees to help him find out the truth. James then heads home to his family. His wife Lauren welcomes him, and he spends time with their daughter, Lucy. That night, after tucking her into bed, she shows him a drawing of their family. James looks at it, but something doesn't feel right. He doesn't remember her drawing it. It leaves him wondering, are these memory gaps from trauma, or is something else going on? The next morning, James gets a call. His teammate Boozer is dead. They say he shot himself in his apartment using a team-issued gun. James is shocked. They were drinking at the bar just the day before, and Boozer always said he disliked that weapon. Things get worse when James finds out Boozer has actually been dead for 2 days. He becomes more confused. Something is not right. James rushes back to base. He is sure now the mission was a setup. The information they had was wrong from the start, and someone is trying to hide the truth. James feels like no one believes him. He starts to feel alone and unsure. To get some help, he sends a message to Katie Baranek. She is a reporter who once spoke with him at the bar when Boozer was still alive. Back then, James didn't take her seriously, but now everything feels different and he wants to hear her thoughts. Katie comes to visit him at home. She listens carefully as James explains everything. She agrees that something strange is going on, but she doesn't fully believe it's a big plan or a cover-up. Instead, she thinks the team was simply pushed too hard. They had less rest than others, and that could have caused stress and mistakes. After Katie leaves, James tells his wife that he wants to see a doctor. He thinks maybe something is wrong with his mind. He goes for a scan. While lying inside the MRI machine, old memories come back to him. He sees flashes from the failed mission and it feels real and intense. When the scan ends, something strange happens. A group of armed men suddenly break into the room and attack him. James reacts fast. He manages to grab a gun from one of the attackers and shoots him. The other man runs away, but James gets a good look at his face before he escapes. After the fight, James checks the weapon and makes a shocking discovery. The gun the attacker used is actually his own. It's the same one he had hidden safely back at home. This makes James panic. If the gun is here, someone has been in his house. He rushes back, heart racing, hoping his family is safe. But when he arrives, he faces the worst pain of all. His wife and daughter have been murdered. James is trapped in the worst pain of his life. His wife and daughter are gone. So are many of his teammates. And now, even his memories seem broken. He can't clearly remember how things really happened. Everything feels like a puzzle with missing pieces. At the funeral, people share warm memories of Lauren. They speak kindly about her, remembering her love and kindness. But for James, it's too much to handle. The sadness is deep, and he leaves early to go back home. At home, the house is cold and quiet. The silence makes everything worse. James walks through the rooms and thinks about the past. Memories come back of happy times with his family, and each one hurts. The joy he once had now feels far away, almost like a dream turning into a nightmare. The next morning, someone knocks on the door. It's an NCIS agent named Joshua Holder. He has questions about the gun James kept in his safe. He says there's something that doesn't add up in James's story. James is sure that trained killers came after him, but the agent isn't convinced. He starts to think maybe the gun wasn't in the safe like James believed. Later, James goes to meet Admiral Pillar. He tries to explain that everything could be linked to the failed mission. Maybe this is revenge. But the Admiral doesn't believe him. He brings up James' mental health and warns him to calm down. James loses control for a moment. He grabs the Admiral and pushes him up against the wall. But then, he lets go and walks away. At the same time, Katie meets with Agent Holder. He tells her he suspects James might have killed his own family. Katie doesn't agree. She goes to the hospital, the place where the attack happened. She carefully looks around the scene and notices something strange. There are no signs of bullets or any fight. It's too clean. This leaves two possibilities. Either James imagined everything, or someone cleaned up the scene to make him look guilty. Katie takes this new theory to James. She says they should team up to find the truth. James is still sure Holder wants to blame him, but since he's not arrested yet, Katie thinks there's still time to prove what really happened. They decide to work together to uncover the truth and clear James's name. James begins to see things more clearly. He remembers the man who attacked him that night, the one in the mask. Now, after paying closer attention, he realizes that the man behind that mask is none other than Josh Holder, the same man who questioned him earlier, the same man who was first to arrive at Boozer's apartment. James recognizes his eyes from their close fight. This means Holder could have also killed his wife and daughter. While James works on this new lead, Katie meets with her boss, Jordan Groff. She gives him updates on the story she's chasing, but Jordan is getting restless. He wants something ready to publish soon, within a day. Katie now has even less time to find answers. James can't ignore his suspicions. He decides to find out if Holder is really working for the wrong side. He sneaks into Holder's apartment. He's not alone. Ben Edwards helps him dig deeper into the truth. They're trying to see if Holder is truly corrupt. Before James can go too far, he is contacted by Secretary Hartley. She wants to talk about what happened with Admiral Pillar. James listens but quickly shifts the conversation. He tells her Holder might be involved in everything. Around the same time, news comes out that the Iranian chemical weapons expert, the original target of the mission, has been killed. Another strange piece in this growing mystery. Back at home, James finds something troubling. He discovers that Holder had taken his fingerprints several days before the break-in. That means Holder could have used them to open the high-tech safe at his house and steal the weapon. Now James feels certain Holder could be their guy. Katie keeps chasing the truth too. She manages to get the hospital report using her own money to get access. She calls Jordan, excited. She wants a neurologist to look at it because the case is becoming even more shocking. Later that night, James confronts Holder face to face. He pushes a gun into Holder's mouth and forces him to prove whether he's the man from the attack. He checks Holder's arm for a knife wound, but finds nothing. Still, James feels sure he has the right man. Under pressure, Holder finally talks. He says he gave away information for money. He also gives a name, Saul Agnon. This might be the man James really wants. But then Holder makes a sudden move. James reacts fast. He pulls the trigger and kills him. To cover his tracks, he stages the scene to look like a suicide. Then, he disappears into the night. James Reese takes all the files and notes he has on Josh Holder and burns them. The fire lights up the dark space as he watches everything turn to ash. He doesn't want to leave any trace behind. Then he grabs a marker and crosses out Holder's name from his personal list. In its place, he writes a new name, Saul Agnon. This man works for Capstone Industries and is high up in the company. He handles the movement and control of important resources. With Holder out of the picture, James no longer holds back. He collects all his gear, including a serious amount of weapons, and gets ready for whatever comes next. He's made up his mind. He's going after Agnon. On the other side, Katie shares what she has found with Jordan. She tells him about James's medical files. The doctors wanted to do more tests, but James checked himself out before they could finish. This action goes against military rules and might have been used to make him look unstable. Katie also finds out something huge. James has a brain tumor. This tumor is in a spot that can cause confusion and paranoia, which explains why he's been acting the way he has. Later, James meets Katie at a restaurant. He tells her about Saul Agnon. She gives him the medical results, but James becomes alert when he spots someone acting strangely nearby. He leaves the place quickly. That suspicious man is actually there to kill him, but James gets the upper hand. After taking him down, James finds documents on the man. Documents about himself. He takes the papers and shows them to Katie, proving that someone really is targeting him. James knows things have gone too far. He tells Katie he needs to disappear and stay hidden. He also says sorry for dragging her into all this, but Katie wants to help. She decides to start digging into Capstone Industries to find out how they are involved in this mess. Meanwhile, Saul Agnon feels the pressure growing. He visits his boss, Steve Horn, and shares his worries. But Steve doesn't seem concerned. Instead, he tells Saul to keep going with his trip to Santa Barbara to finish an important business deal. What Saul doesn't know is that Ben Edwards is already watching him. Ben had recently met with James while he was hiding at a small motel. Now Ben is keeping a close eye on Saul, ready to move if things take a turn. That night, Saul Agnon returns home without any idea of what's waiting for him. And as he moves through his place, he is suddenly attacked from behind. Before he can fight back or escape, he is knocked out cold. When Saul wakes up, he is tied up and staring at James Reese. The look in James's eyes is sharp and full of questions. He demands to know the truth, and Saul, scared and shaken, finally starts to talk. He gives up the name of someone bigger, Steve Horn. James listens carefully. Saul explains that Steve once worked in the tech world and made a fortune there. Now he has a top position and a lot of power. Saul says he's just the person in the middle, following orders. Steve is the one really behind it all. He has strong connections, including people in the military and business. It was Steve who planned the ambush in Syria. Saul also talks about something called Project RD 4895. It's a secret project that's worth a huge amount of money. James realizes this project is at the center of everything that's happened. Then comes the hardest truth. Saul says there is a man named Marcus Boykin, a hitman. He might be the one responsible for killing James's wife and daughter. At the same time, Katie is following her own path. She hears about Project RD 4895 through a different source. Her research leads her to the same point. Steve Horn is deeply involved. Everything now points toward Steve. James knows he needs to find him. Steve is the one holding all the answers. But as for Saul, he cannot be allowed to walk free. James stages the scene to look like Saul died from a drug overdose. He leaves a needle in his arm, making it look like an accident. Then, he quietly slips away into the night, one step closer to the truth. Marcus Boykin is the next name on James Reese's list. James updates the profile and sets his sights on the man. Out on the open road, Marcus drives without knowing he's being watched. High above, James is already in position. He watches every move through the scope of his sniper rifle. From this perfect spot, he pulls the trigger. The bullet hits its target. Marcus crashes, the car flips, and he ends up upside down, covered in blood and barely alive. James walks down to the wreck. He reaches into Marcus's pocket, takes his phone, and unlocks it using facial recognition. Inside, he grabs all the information he can, whatever secrets Marcus was keeping. Then he crosses the name off his list and gets ready to take on his final target, Steve Horn. But trouble is coming. Police begin to close in. They now have security footage of James and a woman with him during the recent street shootout. That woman is Katie. Her identity is still unknown to the officers, but they're running tests to find out who she is. Katie keeps her head down, avoiding attention. At the same time, Secretary Hartley is informed of the situation. She chooses to make everything public. The upcoming hearing will now be televised. She wants it on record that people in power are choosing business deals over military service. Steve Horn, meanwhile, is facing his own problems. He holds a big meeting with his board members, but they no longer trust him. After Saul's death, they're nervous. Steve wants a new vice president, but the group is unsure if they should move forward with his plans. Later that night, Katie sends a message to James. She tells him something important. She believes other soldiers in his unit also have brain tumors, not just him. The next morning, Katie gets a knock on the door. Police are there. They begin questioning her about James Reese. Katie throws it back at the officers. She brings up Saul Agnon and his part in all this. But with both Saul and Josh Holder now dead, the officers push back hard. They make her feel responsible, saying that holding back could cause more harm. Katie doesn't have much useful information, but she feels cornered. In the end, she tells them she doesn't know where James is, but promises to contact them if she finds anything. Meanwhile, Steve Horn isn't slowing down. He changes his business deal and presents it again, this time to Richard, the agent working with Secretary Hartley. What their true goal is still isn't clear, but something feels wrong. It looks like the two of them might be working secretly behind Hartley's back. There's a sense that bigger things are happening in the shadows. Elsewhere, James gets new intel. A group of young killers, sicarios, are being trained inside a warehouse. Leading them is a man named Navajas. This is the same man who murdered James's wife and daughter. The smart move would be to take him out from far away, but James doesn't want that. He's filled with rage. He wants Navajas to know exactly who is ending his life. He wants to face him directly. Ben agrees to help and go with him, but just as they're getting ready, James collapses. His body can't keep up anymore. When he wakes up, he's in front of a doctor. The news isn't good. The doctor tells James that he can live a normal life again, but only if he starts proper treatment for his brain tumor. It will take 6 to 9 months to recover. If he refuses, it might kill him. James makes a tough choice. He decides not to stop, not yet. He chooses to take medicine that helps with the symptoms, just enough to keep going. He knows this might be dangerous, but he wants to finish what he started. He's not ready to quit until the job is done. The mission begins. James Reese and Ben Edwards storm into the warehouse, weapons ready. They don't hold back. Bullets fly everywhere as they take down several armed men. It's loud, fast, and dangerous. They move from room to room, clearing the area with force and focus. Finally, they find Navajas, the man James has been hunting. He doesn't let him go quickly. James gets personal. He tortures Navajas before killing him. It's not just about revenge. It's about sending a message. While this is happening, Katie gets a call that changes everything. She learns something important about Steve Horn. 6 years ago, he bought part of a company called Nubellum Pharmaceuticals. At the time, the business was struggling. After buying in, Steve changed the direction of the company. He pushed it toward creating special drugs for military use, nootropics designed to boost brain performance. Since then, he's been involved in shipping these drugs across different parts of the company, and possibly to military groups. Now, rumors say Steve is close to buying the whole company for $70 billion. If that happens, it could affect the business world in a big way. Katie hears this and decides she's had enough. She packs her things and prepares to leave. Back in time, in Iraq, 2007, James is leading his squad through a city under attack. Bullets fly through the streets as they push toward a crash site, trying to save anyone left alive. The moment feels intense, almost like a war movie. James finds someone, Riley. He helps her, but something strange happens. When he looks up, he sees Lucy, his daughter. But this isn't real. It's a dream, one filled with memories and pain. The scene shows why Riley trusts James and follows him without question. Back in the present, Steve Horn moves closer to completing his massive company deal, but James is already a step ahead. He watches from a distance as Tony Leung arrives to speak with Steve. Tony questions him about his connection to James Reese. Steve acts calm. He says he doesn't know James, but there's a problem. Steve has a tattoo, one that matches those given to people from the same unit. This hints that he and James were once in the same squadron. Steve brushes it off, saying it's just a symbol to honor family and friends who served, but the truth feels much deeper than that. Katie continues her investigation and goes to meet Mike, the man who still holds the final share needed to complete Capstone's big deal. She finds him in the building and quietly follows him into the restroom for privacy. There, she brings up RD-4895, the secret project tied to Nubellum Pharmaceuticals. She thinks this drug may have been used during the failed mission in Syria. Katie leaves him with her contact information and tells him to reach out when he's ready to share the truth. But danger is not far behind. As Katie walks out of the building, James sends her a message. He warns her that the FBI is now watching her. She's no longer safe, and she has to be careful. Mike finally reaches a decision. He contacts Katie and agrees to meet, but they're being watched. Steve Horn finds out about Mike's actions and quickly sends his men to follow them. While these men rush to track their location, Mike and Katie meet and talk. In the quiet of the subway, Mike shares everything. He explains that RD-4895 is an experimental drug meant to help treat PTSD. It was made by Nubellum Pharmaceuticals and was first tested on animals. Those tests worked, but the company skipped important steps and rushed into testing the drug on humans. The results were dangerous. The drug causes brain tumors in people. Steve Horn knows this, and that's why he is rushing to close the deal. He wants to get the money before investors find out the truth, that the drug doesn't actually help and could cause serious harm. To cover things up, shares of the company, worth around $100 million, were handed out through fake companies. It was a way to make big profits before the truth came out. Mike also reveals one final piece of the puzzle. The Navy SEAL team that was ambushed in Syria had taken RD-4895. Because of the tumors caused by the drug, they were weakened in battle. The mission failed, and the deaths were used to hide the truth about the drug. But the plan didn't work like they hoped. Now everything is starting to unravel. Before Katie can learn more, things take a dark turn. An assassin, sent by Steve Horn, appears out of nowhere and kills Mike on the spot. Katie runs for her life, heading up a stairwell. She doesn't hesitate, pulls out her gun and shoots the killer to stay alive. Soon after, James Reese arrives and helps Katie escape the scene safely. Once they're in a secure spot, she tells James everything. But when he asks for the list of companies that are making money from the drug, Katie refuses. She says the truth needs to be told the right way, through official news, not through violence. James doesn't agree. He's had enough. He wants revenge. He wants the people behind all this to pay now, not later. Ben tries to warn James. He says people will start asking questions if he pushes forward like this, but James doesn't stop. In fact, the warning leads to an even bigger discovery. One of the names on the list is shocking. It's the Admiral himself. This makes James even more furious. He builds a bomb with his own hands, planning to take down Steve Horn once and for all. The next morning, Steve Horn stands outside his company headquarters. He holds a press conference and tells reporters that James is dangerous. He blames James for Mike's death and says he's suffering from a mental breakdown. Katie steps in and tries to question him about the business deal, but Steve shrugs it off. He says the deal is done and there's nothing left to talk about. While all this is happening, James quietly drives up. Inside the trunk of his car is the bomb. He parks near Steve's car, walks away quickly, and waits from a distance. Then, he sets off the explosion. The blast throws Steve to the ground, cutting his face badly. But James isn't finished. With everyone watching, he walks up to Steve, pulls out his gun, and shoots him in the head. It happens in broad daylight. No hiding, no escape. Katie is left stunned on the ground. James doesn't stop to explain. He turns around and disappears, once again becoming a man on the run. James visits his in-laws and quietly warns them that they might hear things about him soon. He speaks from the heart, saying that Lauren and Lucy meant everything to him. He would never do anything to hurt them. He says he's going away for a while because there are things he needs to fix. His mother-in-law understands and gives him her quiet support. In San Diego, the FBI is on his trail. James is driving fast, trying to escape, but he hits railroad spikes on the road. The tires burst and his SUV loses control. As the FBI surrounds him, James fires back, and they return fire. But when the team reaches the vehicle, James is gone. All they find are a few of his personal things, including his cancer medication. James has already slipped away into the nearby woods. He finds an old park ranger station and hides there. He's wounded from the gunfight, with a bullet in his shoulder. Alone, he cleans the wound and tries to patch himself up, but the pain gets worse, he doesn't have his medicine, and the headaches return. Police and federal agents keep searching, but the heavy rain works in James's favor. He moves fast and quietly, like a trained frogman. While hiding, he pulls out his list. He crosses off Steve Horn's name and adds 3 more: Pillar, Cox, and Howard. Soon, a SEAL Team 6 unit joins the hunt. James runs again, chased deep into the wild. At one point, he is stuck on a high cliff, cornered. He could shoot Tony and his team from a hidden spot, but he holds back. Instead of violence, he leaves a single bullet behind. It's a message. He had a chance, but he chose not to take it. The team thinks he jumped off the cliff or turned back, but James is already making his way down a different path, and as he scales the mountain, his foot slips. He falls hard. His lower back slams into a rock, and he spins twice before hitting the ground. It's a painful fall, but James gets up, bruised but alive, and keeps moving forward. James finds a cave to rest in. It's cold and wet, and the rain keeps falling outside. He lies down holding a walkie-talkie, his body exhausted. Just as he drifts off to sleep, he begins to dream. In the dream, he hears his wife singing gently to their daughter through the baby monitor. The sound is soft and warm. He feels close to them again, like they're just in the next room. He joins the moment, asking if his wife needs help, then tells her to remind their daughter how brave and strong she is, just like her mother. But the dream fades. James wakes up and hears a voice on the radio. It's Tony. James realizes he had been speaking into the walkie-talkie the whole time, as if his family could really hear him. Tony speaks calmly, knowing James is still chasing justice. It's clear to both of them now, James won't stop until every person involved in his family's death is gone. Later, James has another strange vision. He walks into an old, broken-down store. The roof is leaking, and rain pours inside. Glass windows stand tall, and just then, a small bird, a starling, flies into one and drops to the floor, lifeless. James stares at it. Then he sees his daughter on the other side of the glass. She runs up, worried, asking if the bird will be okay. James places his head gently against the window, wishing more than anything to be with her one last time. He doesn't get that peace. A drone spots him soon after. Knowing he's been found, James sets up C4 explosives around him, and as the SEAL team closes in, he raises his hands and warns them not to come any closer. But one of them, Mac, refuses to move back. The moment turns fast. James sets off the explosives, causing a huge landslide that takes both of them down toward the riverbed below. James survives the fall and crawls out of the dirt. He sees a hand reaching out from the ground. It's Mac. He pulls her out and quickly starts CPR, helping her breathe again. Then, without staying long, he slips away into the trees once more. Later, James makes his way to a hangar where Liz is waiting with a plane. She patches him up and takes care of his wounds. She tries to get through to him, telling him that revenge won't bring his family back, but James stays quiet. His mission isn't over yet. Up in the air, the plane reaches the drop zone. James stands at the edge, then jumps without hesitation. Liz looks back, but sees nothing. He's already gone, diving into the unknown. Sometime later, Ben is sitting in a beach chair, relaxing by the ocean with a cold drink in hand. He stares at the horizon. Then, in the distance, he sees a figure rising out of the water. It's Commander James Reese, alive, worn, but still standing. James returns to his old home and begins to see more pieces of his past. His mind drifts as he walks through the quiet rooms. He remembers the day he and his wife first stepped inside together. The house was empty but full of promise. They laughed, kissed, and teased each other about what to do with the extra room, her future office, or his garage cave. These moments were simple, full of love. Now, they feel distant and painful, like a dream slipping away. While James deals with his memories, the remaining names on his list, Pillar, Cox, and Howard, gather inside Admiral Pillar's office. They talk nervously, weighing their options. It's clear they were all involved in the secret drug testing. They knew RD-4895 was used on their own soldiers. Howard starts to break down. He wants to run, to disappear. But Cox mocks the idea, refusing to flee to another country just because James Reese is hunting them. Back in Coronado, James and Ben are already there, watching the situation from a distance. They stay hidden on Ben's boat, keeping an eye on their targets. Soon, the Secretary of Defense arrives by helicopter and walks into Pillar's office. She wants answers. She brings up the mission that started everything and questions how such a weak lead could launch an entire operation. She asks directly who gave the final push on the report. Pillar smiles, calm as ever, and shifts the blame, saying it's a question better suited for intelligence at Langley. Meanwhile, Katie strikes a deal with the FBI. She wants to finish her article, 5,000 words that tell the full truth. In exchange, she offers to help them get closer to James. She points them toward Steve Horn's computers and the money trail. They find records showing how investors benefited from Nubellum. Worse, those accounts also paid for illegal tests of RD 4895 on Navy SEALs. This opens everything up. The paper trail leads directly to Pillar, Cox, and Howard. The agents split up to track them down. Tony is given the task of confronting Pillar. Tony meets him outside the base. Pillar tries to play confident. He tells Tony that his warrant doesn't matter here. Still, he lets him inside and even hands over documents, hinting they could help prove his innocence. But when Tony finally looks through them, the truth is clear. Pillar knew everything. The evidence is solid. There's no denying it now. Ben and James waste no time going after the final two names. First up is Howard. Ben pretends to be an FBI agent and shows up at Howard's house. He tricks him before Howard can take his family and escape to Key West. Howard is arrested right there at home. Meanwhile, James goes after Cox. He ambushes him in a parking lot, hitting hard and fast. He breaks Cox's arm and injects him with something that knocks him out. When Cox wakes up, he's in trouble. He's tied to one of those heavy 800-pound wooden logs used in Navy SEAL training. The log is strapped across his body, and he's standing in shallow water, only about 2 feet deep. James questions him. Cox finally admits there were only 3 officers who knew what was really going on. The rest, including those who gave the shots, were told it was just B12 vitamins. James listens, then steps back. Slowly, the log pulls Cox under. James watches as the water covers his face. He doesn't stop. Cox drowns. Back on the beach, Ben has Howard and his family tied near a car. James arrives. Howard begs and tries to play innocent, saying he was just doing paperwork. James doesn't buy it. He asks Howard to do something. What it is, we don't fully know, but Howard refuses at first. Then James threatens his child, saying he will suffer like Lucy did. That breaks Howard. He agrees, and James starts dragging him toward the water. Howard's mother clings to him, begging, but James keeps going. He tells Ben to let the family go once Howard follows through. When Ben asks where James is going afterward, James gives a quiet reply. He says he needs to go home. He needs to see them. Elsewhere, DCIS agent Azad, a powerful figure linked to the Secretary of State, visits the FBI office in San Diego. He announces that his agency is now taking over the case. It doesn't matter that these men committed crimes. What matters is that the experiment itself had approval. Tony is stunned. Azad explains it was given emergency authorization. Pillar had permission to use RD 4895 on the soldiers under special orders. The real problem wasn't the experiment. It was hiding it afterward. Azad leaves and Tony takes everything he's learned and passes it along to Katie. The truth is bigger than any of them thought, and it reaches all the way to the Pentagon. Katie finishes her article, putting together everything she's learned. The final detail comes from the information Tony gave her. Secretary Hartley is the one hidden shareholder the FBI couldn't trace. She was the one who approved the experiment from the start. Steve Horn funded the cover-up, but Hartley made the call that started it all. Her share in Nubellum is worth $20 million. Katie sends the finished story to her old editor. He promises to publish it within the hour. Meanwhile, James sits quietly at his home. The house is full of memories. Moments he remembers, and others he regrets missing. He recalls the day he found out he would be a father. He thinks of his daughter winning the spelling bee. He remembers his wife putting their baby to sleep. Then comes the memory of her frustration, how she wanted him to stop going to war, to come home and stay. All of this feels like a goodbye. It's as if James is ready to die. But then, a message lights up his phone. It's from Katie. She tells him that Hartley approved the experiment. James makes one final move. He straps a bomb to Howard's chest and sends him into Admiral Pillar's office. Howard walks in and gives Pillar a phone. James speaks from the other end. It's the last thing Pillar hears before the bomb explodes, killing them both. Soon after, Tony arrives at James's house. He finds him inside. James is ready. Tony wants to stop him, says he can't let him keep doing this. But James knocks him out with the butt of his gun, ties him up, and tells him clearly, stay off the list. Katie calls her editor to check on the article, but something is wrong. He says he never received it. She rushes to her computer and sees the file was never sent. Right then, Secretary Hartley walks into the room. Hartley smiles. She praises the story, says it's well written, but says it can't go out, at least not as it is. She offers Katie a deal. She will give her a personal interview, on her terms, but only if the full truth stays buried. James and Ben are back on the run. traveling in their Sprinter van. At a gas station, James catches a glimpse of the news playing on a small TV inside. His face and Ben's are now all over the screen. The authorities are looking for them. Ben is in the middle of changing his look, adjusting his disguise from his old CIA playbook. He returns to the van with some food and hands it to James. He also shares something important. He knows where Secretary Hartley is hiding. Katie, on the other hand, is being taken to a private location, Hartley's version of Camp David. It's a quiet place, secure and remote. Inside, Hartley begins to talk. She tells Katie that her facts are correct, but her conclusion is wrong. Katie pushes back, pointing out that all the people involved had shares and made money. It's hard not to believe Hartley was one of them. Hartley explains her side. She says this wasn't a cover-up because she gave full approval for the experiment. She believes it was the right thing to do. She then explains why. Hartley has always supported reducing the number of soldiers needed for active duty. She shares a shocking number. Between 17 and 22 veterans commit suicide every day. If those numbers were seen in active soldiers, it would be like living through 2 9/11 attacks every year. That's how serious she sees the problem. She says that if trauma can be treated early, if pathways in the brain can be reduced or blocked, then fewer soldiers would suffer. Fewer would need to return to war. Hartley gives Katie permission to include her full explanation in the article. Later, Hartley opens up even more. She talks about her father, who had PTSD. She remembers having to protect her mother during his outbursts. One day she found him. He had taken his own life in the attic. Her voice is calm, but the pain is clear. This moment brings up an important question. What about consent? And if it is right to test something so serious on soldiers without telling them? Hartley responds that the experiment works better when subjects don't know. The results are more real that way. Katie listens carefully. Finally, Hartley confirms something big. She says she had no idea the drug caused brain tumors. She only learned the truth after watching Katie confront Steve Horn in the video, just before he died. James and Ben head toward Hartley's hidden compound, and Katie sends a message to James. She asks him not to come just yet. She needs more time. They are still a few hours away when they hit a police checkpoint. What happens next is a reminder that even in the most serious situations, simple mistakes can change everything. A police officer begins searching their van. Ben sits calmly in the front seat, while James hides under the bed in a vent space. The officer checks the back, looks around, but never lifts the mattress, one of the most obvious places to hide someone. Just as she reaches for it, she decides not to bother and walks away. Ben's cover as a CIA agent and the van's clean records help them get through. Back on the road, Ben tries one more time to convince James to walk away from all of this. He says they can escape together, head south to Peru, and leave this life behind. But James says no. He has to see this through. Ben can still go with him, but James says he needs him to stay behind and cover him with the .50 cal. Ben looks at his friend with emotion in his eyes and tells him he shouldn't die alone. James gives a small smile and says he won't. Then, without another word, he dives into the water, swimming silently toward Hartley's compound. Meanwhile, Katie finishes her story and gets ready to leave. Before she goes, she changes the headline. Now it reads, Lorraine Hartley's Legacy and Her Private War for Special Operators. Maybe it's to help her leave safely. Maybe it's to buy a little more time. Either way, she sits down again, one final time, and starts recording Hartley's answers. Katie presses hard, asking for the full truth. She wants to clear up the mission timeline. Hartley becomes defensive. She avoids the questions about when she saw Pillar's reports, or whether the cover-up investigation started before or after Steve Horn's death. Katie sees something isn't adding up. She points out that Hartley seems to be telling two different stories. In the first one, Hartley didn't know RD 4895 caused tumors. She says it was just a tragic mistake, an attempt to solve a mental health crisis using science and trust in her team. In the second version, Hartley says she had already launched a criminal investigation into Horn and the cover-up before the events in San Francisco. Katie sees the contradiction and calls her out. This isn't one story, it's two. And then, like a courtroom drama playing out in real life, Katie pushes even harder. She tells Hartley what she really believes, that she sent good men to die. Hartley angrily replies that she made these choices to save lives. In her mind, the experiment already prevented dozens of suicides each day, and if the drug had been approved officially, it could have saved even more. But Katie doesn't let her off the hook. She calmly tells her that killing is still killing, whether you profit from it or not. Hartley fires back one last time. She says Katie won't be allowed to build a career by standing on the backs of the men who died. Meanwhile, James reaches the island. He moves quietly and carefully. Ben watches his back from afar, ready on the .50 caliber. But soon, things escalate. Gunfire and explosions break out. From a distance, the FBI team sees the flashes. Two agents are sent to deal with Ben, Private security takes control of the operation as they arrive. James pushes forward. He moves through the estate like a shadow, taking out anyone in his way. Inside, Hartley, Katie, and 2 guards rush into a safe room. When they hear James approaching, Hartley panics. She orders the guards to leave the room and stop him. James continues his approach, one step at a time. Eventually, Reese kills every man standing in his path. Only 1 bodyguard is left. The man sees there's no hope, so he surrenders. He drops his weapon and raises his hands. Reese tells him to open the safe room door, and the guard does as asked. Then, without hesitation, James shoots him in the head. He enters the safe room. Katie and Hartley are waiting. Katie speaks first, telling him that she never earned any money from this. She wasn't the final hidden shareholder, but James says it doesn't matter. She may not have profited, but she gave the green light. She started the chain of events. Before James can pull the trigger, Hartley takes her own life. She raises a gun and shoots herself in the head. Bleeding, tired, and broken, Reese makes his way out. When he reaches the beach, Tony is there, waiting, but Tony doesn't stop him. He steps aside and lets James go. Katie is sitting alone in a hotel room. Her article is finally live, published for the world to see. She sends a message to James. The last hidden investor is linked to a company called Obercon Analytics. It's based in Peru, the same place where Ben has quietly gone to live in hiding on the beach. Katie leaves the hotel, her job done. Far away, Ben is in Peru. He climbs onto his boat, surfboard in hand. Everything seems calm, but when he goes below deck, he senses something. He turns, and James Reese is standing there, waiting. Ben knows why he's come. He admits it. He was the CIA agent who helped push forward the fake intelligence report about Kahana. He says it was because he was told that everyone involved was already marked for death, so they might as well die in combat. But James doesn't stop there. He brings up the $20 million payout. Ben nods. That was part of it too. Still, he swears he had nothing to do with what happened to James's wife and daughter, and when he found out about it, he wanted revenge just as much. He was angry, ready to burn everything down beside James. James understands, but it doesn't change what has to be done. Ben accepts it. He tells him to finish the list. James raises his gun. The camera shifts to the beach. We don't see what happens, just the peaceful shoreline, the boat floating in the distance. A single gunshot echoes across the waves. Later, James stands at the edge of the water. He opens his hand and lets the paper, the list of names, fall into the ocean. The water carries it away, piece by piece. He remembers the starling, the way it flew into the glass and broke its neck. He remembers that painful moment with Lauren trying to explain death to Lucy. He told her that if one day he didn't return home, he would still be with her, always inside her heart. Lucy cried. They all held each other close. It was love, even in the middle of loss. Now, with the mission complete, James stands alone, but his heart is still full of those memories. That is it for today. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to comment and like the video. Your support helps us keep going. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss what's next.